Okay, guys.
Better yet, you want us to eat for you?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, actually, the fries are getting kind of cold, so, I don't think they started out really hot. This is an SIS Basics class. The two ETL guys I was hoping were going to be here aren't, so fine. Some of the stuff I threw in there, especially for them, we'll just all join the cool club, and we'll just say, you missed it.
We call Dennis.
Yeah. I bet he would. So, okay, this is going to explain, for those of you who don't know anything at all about SIS, what it's about, what it does, how it does it, and hopefully we're going to take you from ground zero to at least a full package load. I'm not going to be able to deploy a package today because it's on my local box and authentication problems. I didn't have time to work out, whatever. But and I'm working in the Katmai release, which is SQL 08. So some things will be slightly different, but probably not different enough at the level we're going to be working at that you would even notice. Okay, but just know that that's why I can't deploy to another box, because we don't have another Katmai box lying around except for my workstation here. So with that, SIS is SQL Server Integration Services, and it used to be called DTS, and it's not now because it's a completely rewritten product. I was probably one of the last people on the planet calling it DTS. I nicknamed it DTS.net when it was in beta, and I actually kind of liked that name. I still do. DTS.net. It just kind of follows the whole theme, doesn't it? But they've got this naming scheme that they're trying to get out of everything, SSRS, SSAS, SSMS, SSIS. So they're sticking with that. So they're lining everything up to contrive names for them all, right? So SIS is an ETL tool. It's a full-blown ETL tool, and it works with anything, not just SQL. It'll work with any database or any file that you can make a connection to, okay? Back in the Yukon days, and I say it now like it was so long ago, here we're just a few months into Katmai deployment. It's already back in the Yukon days. Back in the SQL 05 days, they had two separate bits for Visual Studio, because SIS is actually just more like a Visual Studio plugin sort of thing, right? So they had two separate bits. You could install Visual Studio 05 on your box, and when you installed SQL 05 on your box, it installed a separate set of Visual Studio bits on your box, and it kept them managed separately. Don't know why, but I think they fixed that in Katmai. I think there's only one set of bits. But even in Yukon, to get to SIS, there are two ways you can get to SIS. You can go under SQL and go to SQL Server Business Intelligence Development Studio. And that's what you'll hear it called most of the time. You'll hear it called BIDS. Okay? That's what that means. It's BIDS. Or you can go to Visual Studio, and in my case it has to be 08, right? But Visual Studio, and it will come up as a plugin to Visual Studio. Okay? And the way that you'll see it most of the time, and I've already got a project here for the SIS Basics class, but I'll start up another one. When you start up a new project, you'll see BI projects up here, and this is where you'll see it, an integration services project. Okay?
The other option that you showed us, the SQL Server Manager, like when we install it 2008, all those are installed by default, isn't it?
Yes.
So now, do we need special permissions for that, or I can just go and leave it there?
Yeah.
Logging into that.
Yeah, if it's on your box, because you're not logging into anything really, you're just bringing up a development environment. So if you've loaded BIDS on your local workstation, you can open it up and write packages all day long to any box or any file you have access to. Yeah, it's the same as any other Visual Studio project, right? So yeah, it's local here. What I'm doing right here requires no permissions outside of the OS yet, right? Not until you start making connections somewhere, do you have to have permissions to make. Need permissions to make those connections, right? So yeah, right now we're all local. So at this point, I would just give it a name, and I'm not going to do it because I've already got my package. I've already got my project there, right? And unfortunately, nothing can really happen inside of SIS without a project. If you open up a package, if you export a package and open it up inside of Visual Studio and try to make modifications to it and resave it, you can't do it unless it's part of a project. And I don't really understand the decision behind that, because sometimes you just want to open up a thing, change it real quick, and then deploy it back, and you don't want to have 1,000 little folders on your hard drive, but it is what it is, right?
So any package is attached to a project, and every package is attached to a project.
Yes.
Whether it's already there or the new one.
Right, exactly. And you can add packages to projects pretty easily. Usually when you create a project, you're going to have a default package.dtsx under here. I've deleted it from this one, right? But you will have a default package. So if I say new SIS package, let's make sure I'm where I want to be. Yeah, kind of. So I've got my package 1 because it already had package, right? So you probably don't want to keep it named package. Whatever it's named over here is what it's going to be named when you deploy it, okay? So you can see if I have a bunch of package 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s on the server, you're not going to have any idea what they do, right? So the easiest thing to do is to right click and say rename, and then we'll say our first package. It's going to come up and say, do you want to rename the package object as well? This is the package object. You'll say yes. And now we have the actual package that's the name of the package that's actually going to be deployed on the server when it is deployed.
The DTSX extension, was it from the previous version, from the DTS?
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't change that.
No. So there are still, you'll see a lot of references still to DTS in the folder structure and in the registry structure. A lot of things are still called DTS. They call it, depending on who you ask, it's either, well, we don't have time to go through and change all that stuff, or they call it an homage to DTS where it began. So one of them's really honest, and I think one of them's really kind of justifying, if you ask me, right? Now, one really cool thing about creating packages, okay, not only can you create packages from here, but you can import packages directly from servers. Okay, so they don't have to be a file. You can import a package from the file system or from a SQL server that's deployed out there somewhere and make it part of your project, okay? But one of the things that's really cool is the problem with a lot of packages, or the problem with SIS in general, is that it's gotten kind of a reputation for being more of a development environment than an ETL tool, because you have to do everything. You can't really save global steps, you can't save global objects and make it more COM-like you can probably do with something like Informatica or something, where you could store them up there and then just have a whole collection of things that you've customized here, right? I mean, you can do it, you can write your own tasks, but that's not the same as saying I have this email task here that's configured for my environment and I'm going to save it so everybody can just drag it over there and use it, right? You can't really do that, but you can do the next best thing. And I really like this. We don't use it here for some reason. But when you create a new package, if you say new SIS package, oh, that's right. Sorry. Let me delete that because that's not what I wanted. Yes. If you say add existing package, keep messing that up. This level. Geez, no wonder we don't do it here. I can't even do it. So I'll say new package from here. Oh, you're killing me. Delete. There. Right click. Add. New item. Thank you. Okay. Add new item. Okay, so you'll notice a couple items here that I have that you don't. I've got default with log, and I've got load my DW. These are package templates that I've created and placed in the file structure somewhere, which is pretty deep, and one of the reasons it doesn't get used a lot probably is because it's misdocumented in BOL, so nobody would be able to find it. So if I double click on this, you'll see I've got some pretty cool stuff in here. I can overlay, I can keep a package header that I want people to fill out for documentation purposes. I can put anything in here I want. If I wanted to put and one of the things that I've got in here is my logging. I've already got the level of logging that I want set up, so everybody can be working from the same level of logging. You don't have to worry about somebody forgetting it or logging the wrong thing when you want them to be doing something else. You could put anything in here you want. Notice I've already got my connections set up. So if you've got, the same 2 connections that you use all the time, or the same 3 connections, go ahead and set them up in a template, pass the template out to all your guys, and you can really shorten your development time. Even with something like the send mail task. If I did the send mail task, you notice how the first thing I have to do is create an SMTP connection, and then I have to put my recipient list and all that stuff in there, where I could create my SMTP connection and have this just sitting here for people to just copy and paste when they need it. So I could just leave it sitting there, and you could have it just ready right there. You could have your recipient list and everything. It really takes a lot of the development time out. So using package templates is really the way to go. I deleted it and it worked. Yay! And you see here, this is kind of the way I like to document packages. I like to give an overview. I have a history section, not only who wrote it, but how to contact them. And over here I have package steps, the exact steps that the package takes. It's just not convenient. Well, it is convenient, but it's courteous to the people who are going to be coming in after you, for them to see, what the package is doing. First it does this, then it does that, then it does that. And they get a nice little overview of what the package is supposed to be doing. And over here in the overview section, which is what you think I would have just been describing, it's what tells, what calls the package, why it's there to begin with, how often it gets called, and maybe any troubleshooting guidelines that may come along or something. You know what I mean? So just because one of the things when you open up a package or an SP or anything, it's like, well, where's it being called from? What's it being used for? What's its purpose, and so on, right? So all of that stuff would go in here, and these are just my personal guidelines, of course. I mean, I added all this stuff to the package. But if you want all your people to fill out whatever header information you want, put it in the template and tell them to fill it out. I mean, it's just that easy, right? They can't forget it if it's already here. So that's templates. And with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and start with this template. Now, for those of you who had any experience at all with DTS, and I think some of y'all do, don't you? You'll notice that this is a big, there's a big paradigm shift from DTS, where control flow and data flow in DTS were the same thing. They were all in the exact same spot, just one big designer, and that really caused a lot of problems. And anybody that did anything at all in DTS knows that sometimes to get an entire group of things to happen at once before another group of things happened, it could be very, very difficult. A lot of times you ended up crawling the DOM and turning package steps on and off, which was hard to troubleshoot because it was just VB script and there was no color coding and no real debugging or anything, right? So what we've got here is we've got a division between control flow and data flow, and there's nothing here yet. Control flow is anything that that moves in the package, anything that causes you to go from one step to another. Okay, so moving a file from here to there, deleting a file, creating indexes, something like that is going to be in your control flow, right? And your toolbox changes depending on which one you're on, depending on which tab you're on. Your data flow is just what it says. It's anything that physically moves data. Okay? So you can have, and I'll show you here in a second. Let's go ahead and create a data flow task. Inside this data flow task, and you'll notice I can either double click on this or I can click here, and now there's something in there. And you notice how all these options have changed, right? They've changed from data sources and to data transformations and data destinations, right? And over here in control flow, you've got all of these nice scripting tasks and process tasks and executing SQLs and file system and FTP and whatnot, right? Now, let's stay on control flow for a minute. I just wanted to show you this. Now, one of the things that, going back to data flow real quick, one of the things that can be misleading in this is when I see this little icon here that says data flow, that's very easy to picture in here, right? I mean, you've got lines going to and fro, and we'll build one of these here in a minute, right? But inside of here, you could have 6,000 connections doing 6,000 things. So it's really misleading. You see one little square, it's a data flow. Oh, look at that, it's a data flow. And then you open it up, boom, and the package all of a sudden explodes into just busy, just data being moved everywhere and doing everything. You're like, wow, this package is a lot more complicated than I thought it was, right? This is the equivalent of writing VB script in DTS, right? Where you would open up a package and you would see one little script thing in there, like, oh, isn't that cute? His little package, open it up and it's 6,000 lines of VB script, and you're like, oh, it's going to be a long day, right? So that's the equivalent of that. Now, you've got these different containers up here. These 3 containers are going to be your best friends and your worst enemies. But they are one of the most important enhancements to this product, and this being the ETL product, right? Because they do almost everything you relied on VB script for in DTS, okay? The sequence container, if I drag this over here, anything inside of here is going to run as a contiguous unit, okay? So if I drag this inside the sequence container and then say, oh, we'll just make something up, right? An execute SQL task, there we go, and attach these two right here, and then say go to a send mail task, right there. Both of these guys are going to run as a unit before this gets called. That's pretty easy to understand, right? That's what makes it a sequence container. And you can have one sequence going to another one, going to another one, going to another one. You can have sequences inside of sequences, and it's just, I mean, you can just have it terribly, terribly complicated, right? The same thing for the for each loop. I don't really have a for each loop example, but it's easy enough to understand. You iterate through different items and perform the same actions based off of those items. So a really good example of that would be iterating through files in a drive. And you can make that recursive. You can have it search subfolders as well. So if you've got all of one, you know, your XML files or all of your text files or your CSVs that you've pulled in, you can have it search, you can have it go through each one of them and process each one of them, which is something you absolutely could not do in DTS. That was just completely unheard of. You had to do that kind of thing in VB script, and it was very complicated and very error prone and not nearly as rich. Okay? So just the fact that you can do the for each loop container is just phenomenal. And for loop, of course, is the same thing, except it counts. It's the same thing as any other for loop, right? It counts a variable from 1 to something and performs it a certain number of times, right? Yes, sir, Anya, you missed the package templates. So we're actually in a package template, okay? Oh, that's what I was going to show. Oh, good. It's a good thing you came in here because I got sidetracked. I wanted to show you guys how to create a package template. How's that? So, so if I come here and all I want to do is, are we on default log 1? Yeah, let's rename this to our new package. Yes. Okay. I'll just go ahead and build that real quick. Now, with that, I'll kill this so I can be nice to you guys. I can show you guys what I'm looking for. And here's our new package right here. That's where that's in our build folder, right? So we're in the bin build folder where I just compiled that, okay? So if I want to create a template, Now this is kind of thick, okay? No wonder it's one of the best kept secrets. But you go to C, Program Files, Visual Studio 9. It would be Visual Studio 8 if you were in 05. And the path changes a little bit in 05, but if you look at what I'm doing here, you can get the idea. So then you go to Common 7, really intuitive this guy, isn't it? IDE, private assemblies, it's getting better, isn't it? Project items, there's our first homage to DTS. Transformation items, we're here, and you can see the other two packages I have in here already, right? So now, when I copy our new package, Control C, Control V, so now I've got our new package, and let's close this guy right here. Close that one. I'm going to learn my lesson this time. Here, add, new item, look at that, first try. Our new package. Bam, with everything we just put in there. So you can have these templates with anything you need in there. And if this is something I do a lot, I just cut my development time by like 10 minutes. That's kind of important, right? Now, when you do this, you notice how it still has the same name, so I had to name it as 1, right? So it's really best if you do two things to get this going again. First, rename the package. And we'll call it the package because we're really, really creative. And then it's really best if you generate a new ID for it because it still holds the old ID of the old package. And if they coincidentally go on the same server, then you could run into some problems, right? So now that we have that, we save that, and now our new package template is ready to use as a new package.
So it's not really a template in the traditional sense where, like in Word, when you create a new document from a template, it actually creates a new document. This is just pulling up that copy of the package, and then you go modify it the way you want.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a template in the sense that you're using it as a template because you're probably going to put a bunch of generic stuff in here. Like I said, I've got my connections already created down here. I've got my header stuff in here for the developer to fill out. And if I want to put any SMTP connections or the email or any logging stuff, Saranya, you missed this one, but in this I've already got all of my logging set up. So I don't have to go in there and worry about remembering it or worry about whether or not I'm logging the same thing that he's logging. We're all using the same template, so we're all logging the same thing and everybody knows what to expect sort of thing, right? So, yeah, you're going to use it as a template, but you're right, it's not a template in the traditional sense. And you could do it anyway, right? I mean, you don't have to use that as a template. You could just say add existing package and go to wherever it is on your hard drive that you keep all of those and get the exact same effect. Yeah, if you wanted to do it that way. But this way it shows up, shows up in your little list here, so it's just, it takes the cool factor up a notch. I say the geek factor because it's such a deep tree. It's a geek factor, not a cool factor.
It'd be even cooler if it assigned it a new ID on
That's
that.
what I was thinking, man.
Yeah,
That's what
tell me. And you could assign, it the config files and whatnot, although I would really find that a little less useful because unless the package is going to be exactly the same, just with, slightly different parameters, then, you're going to end up redoing your config file anyway because it's not going to have any of the same things. So I wouldn't really mess with trying to do a config file in this thing, but, it is what it is, right? Okay. Let's see. Let me look at my paper and see where we're supposed to be now because I've kind of gotten off. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's as good a place as any to pick up. Let me go ahead and I'll go ahead and get rid of that. One cool thing that you can do here, and I'm just going to show you some general moving around in the GUI stuff, right? Is you can very easily copy and paste items. Well, if your box is fast, you can very easily copy and paste items. We'll wait for something. Oh, nice. I like it. Don't send. Why couldn't you? Yeah, serialize the SSIS runtime objects, huh? Let me. Oh, I'm on the right click. I hate these things. There we go. Can you copy it? No. Oh, I love this. I've been doing this all morning.
You still see some error on that, on the object.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not configured. Theoretically, you can copy and paste objects very easily. I've been doing it all morning. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's my problem. Let me go to our first package and say data flow. Nope, it's just not going to do it. Let's restart SIS and just see. No, let's not save anything. Well, you know, this is what you get with live demos, isn't it? You can see there I have integration services installed. I'm doing this just to solidify in y'all's heads how to start this program up. Let's see if we can do a data flow. God, what is your problem? You are kidding me. Well, on you, no, I'm not rebooting anything. Well, on your box it'll work, and it'll work on mine if I reboot it. I mean, I do this all the time. So anyway, you can copy objects, you can copy packages. If you just right-click and copy, which I'm not going to do now because it's just too much for me to handle. But you can take that entire container that we had with all those objects in it. You could copy that entire thing, change a couple parameters, and just drag a thing over to it, which is pretty common, right? I mean, when you have several tables in there and they all look the exact same and you just need to change the table for the process, you don't want to rewrite the entire process. You just copy it, and you copy them all the time, don't you? See? It can be done. I need confirmation here, man. I'm dying.
Control flow is it equivalent of a mapping in Informatica? Is it like this is the core mapping?
You know, oddly enough, Informatica and and SIS, they follow the same basic pattern, okay? They both have a control flow and a data flow. They just call it something different, right? But would this be the same as the mapping? Well, this is more like the process mapping, okay? This would be more like I want to take this file over here, I want to move this data from here to here, and then I want to do something else, right? So this is more like the high-level data flow, right? And the data flow itself is anything that moves actual data. Okay, so
where do you get the detailed transformations? How to filter, sort, some detailed transformations?
Yeah.
Where do you write those?
Yeah, that would be in the data flow, right? That would be in the data pipeline itself, right? But like, because if you look at, I mean, and it's pretty easy to discern, right? If you're talking about anything that moves data, you know, does a send-mail task move data? No, it sends an email. That's not moving data, right? It's moving bits, but it's not moving data, right? You know, is a sequence container moving data? No, it's the flow of the package. I'm going to do all of these, and then I'm going to do all of these, and then I'm going to do all of these, right? And coming in from DTS, this is the hardest thing for people to get their hands on. You know, it's the hardest thing to actually grasp. And after that, all you got to do is just master thinking in SIS, and because things aren't done exactly the way you think they should be done. So, in these guys, let's see. Do y'all want to talk about errors or variables first? Let's talk about variables. You can have variables like you can in anything, and variables have scope. And everybody here knows what scope is, right? Right? Cool. So whatever you click on here, whatever is active in the pane is the scope that your variable is going to have. So I have my variable var1. I have to give it a data type. right? It likes to default to int. You've got these data types available to you. You can set it a default if you want. And you notice how this one has a package level scope, right? If I had this highlighted, notice how I'd have a data flow task level scope, which means, of course, scope means that it can only be seen within that flow, right? So anything you want to be seen by the entire package has to have a package level scope. I almost always use package level scopes. I'm too dumb to keep up with real scopes and stuff. So we're not going to really do anything with variables today. I just wanted you to see that they are. Well, you know, partially because we've only really got more or less an hour, right? And there's so much to talk about with basics. I mean, we could have classes every day for the next 6 months and still not touch on everything there is to touch on this product. So now, as far as package errors goes, every item in a package has errors. Okay, it has an error, what we call an error threshold, right? So you see that right here with maximum error count. And again, I'm at the properties for the package. I come down here and change it for the data flow. So if you know that you're going to have errors, maximum error count, if you know that you're going to have errors and you want to put up with them, you know, change it to 1,000. If you don't want your package to fail for any reason, and you always want to be able to handle errors in a different, you know, handle errors on your own, and you never want to see a package failure, change the error count to something ridiculous and your package will always pass. Yes.
You said something there that I was confused about. Are you saying that if the package throws an error, even if it's handled, and your maximum error count is 1, it will fail the package? Or is that only unhandled errors?
Those are only unhandled errors.
I just want to make sure.
Right, yeah. Anything you write an event handler for is automatically handled.
Okay.
That doesn't necessarily count for a package level I mean, okay, and that's the same thing with like a script task, right? I mean, if you handle errors inside a script task, you can control whether or not that task itself fails,
Throws an error.
right? And if it never fails because you've handled the exception, well, then it's not gonna go up to the parent, right? So, so that's for the data flow, and you could do it for the package as well. So if you want the entire package to be able to fail, but you don't want any data flow errors to, any unhandled data flow errors to filter up to the package, then set that at 1,000 and, you know, or whatever, right? And you should be fine. But I just wanted you to know that this exists, okay?
Can you set it to 0 for unlimited?
Unlimited is, could you set it to 0 for unlimited? I don't know. I've never tried. It would either be 0 or -1.
Okay.
It would probably be one of those two.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I've always gone astronomical or handled my errors. You know? But yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. So with that, we'll get into data flows. Sorry, one more thing. You can rename these guys, and I really suggest that you do. We'll say data move, right? Because when you get, you know, 2 or 3 dozen of these guys in here, and they all say data flow task 1, data flow task 2, data flow task 3, data flow task 4, yeah, it's going to be really hard when you go back in there and say, okay, I need to add this column to this table, right? And one more thing, I've actually got a video on documenting inside of SIS packages, but I'll touch on it briefly for you, and you can go see the video later if you want, right? One of the things that I'm really big on is, let's say I have a data flow, and then another data flow, and a script, Hello. I seem to not be having very much luck today, huh?
Reboot.
Stop saying that!
Being rebellious.
Man, I am just not having good luck today.
You may have a hidden dialogue.
I don't know where it would be.
Cycle all.
Yeah, I'm going to have to.
Yeah, guess what? I see something out there maybe.
No, those are my recorder. Yeah, that's my recorder.
Oh.
Save and close, and we'll come back again. I'm in this tool how many hours a day, and this never happens, and the second I turn on the recorder? Actually, that may be the problem. Okay, so we're here, and I have oh, don't you. Ah, there we go. Ha ha. Okay, I'm going to stop there while I'm ahead. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So before we get to actually moving data, I realize I keep promising you we're going to move some data, and we will. Let's talk about documenting. So we've got move data, and we'll say some more data, and script me. Okay. One of the things I'm a really big proponent for is documentation in the packages. And the way you do that is with annotations. Right? So, document your stuff, guys. When you're here, oh, it's acting up on me again. Nice. Oh, you're kidding. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Nope, it's not going to do it. Wow, it didn't bomb on me. So when you're here, document what these steps are doing. Be nice to yourself. If you've got an FTP task here, and there's FTP login information, put a little thing right here that gives the FTP server and the login information. It's just courteous to yourself or to whomever is going to be supporting your package, right? If there's a special function here that's going to cause it to split on something, put a little note there, right there, so you can see that this function does this, you know, because you'll be able to see that there's a function there. But put a little note there that says this function does this, or the business reason behind the reason you did something. Document some of this stuff in there so that when you're looking at it, you go, well, why the hell did I do that? In 2 months, right, you'll be going, why the hell did I do that? Oh, because of the thing. Oh, okay. Explain it to yourself, right? You may not be your replacement may not be the only one who needs it. You may need it. So I'm really, really big on documenting stuff in line like this because it's right there. You know, you don't want to go to, you know, we used to document this stuff in external sources, but you may not even know that source exists. That documentation may be out of date because the guy had to do it on the fly and didn't update the documentation over here, and on and on and on, right? Or like I said, you may not even know it exists, and in the middle of the night, you know, the file server may be down, something. But this way, anytime you're in the package and you need it, you can look at it and go, oh, this was done because of this, and it's in context. You don't have to go look it up somewhere. So I like to do stuff like that in line like this. I had another point I was going to make. These precedence constraints here, this is a green arrow, which means on completion, right? So you can change it to failure or success, or you can change it to completion, which is blue, right? So you don't care if it actually succeeds. You don't care if moving this data succeeds, as long as it completes. Whether it throws an error or not, I want to go to the next step, right? Not many people use that. Go figure. And like I said, you can edit it, and you can have it be a constraint. You can have it be an expression, a constraint, and constraint, and so on, right? And we're not going to get into expressions today either, but they can be very useful when you're doing certain things. You can go down certain paths based off of an expression that you assign to a variable and whatnot, right? So, okay, before I say this, let's move some data. I just didn't want to get your hopes up again. Ooh, I know, huh? Okay, So we're in here. The first thing you have are data flow sources, right? And of course, a data flow source is anything that where your data is going to start. It can be a flat file, it can be a database, it can be an OLEDB connection, XML, a raw file, which you'll probably never use until you're very advanced. For you guys that have been with SIS for a while, a raw file source is they're actually pretty cool. What they are is and I may be jumping ahead a little bit here, but it's a good place to talk about it. Inside SIS itself, there are two separate data structures for data. There's the data that it comes across, that it pushes as the source and destination, okay? So that would be like integer and varchar, or integer and string and double and boolean and all of that, right? But in the data pipe itself, in the pipeline itself, it gets translated to pipeline language, I guess. It would be the equivalent of the intermediate language in .NET, right? So it all, and that's how it's able to do this, is even from Oracle, from everything, it translates this into the pipeline. We'll call it the pipeline language for lack of pipeline structure, okay? And so it keeps its own pipeline structure of the data so that it works with it, and then it translates it back out on the other side. A raw file saves it as that pipeline language. So it's a file that's saved in that native pipeline language, and you can put things to and fro there for storage, right? And so it's very fast because it doesn't have to translate again. It's automatically very fast. So you can do some pretty cool things with that. I've been meaning to make a video on that for like 6 months now and just haven't. And now I'm getting jazzed. I may do that sometime soon. But anyway, that's what a raw file is.
So it can be text, Excel, or anything?
I'm sorry?
What? It is a text file or
Well, it's a text file, but if you opened it up, it would just be gibberish. Right? I mean, you wouldn't be able to look at it and go, wow, look at that. It would look like a compiled something. Okay?
so it can be Excel, any type of file?
Well, no. It's a raw file source. I mean, it will save it as a raw file. You can't save a raw Excel file. It's basically what it is it's a memory dump of the pipeline saved into a file. Okay? Okay. So you've got your sources. Those are easy to understand. Destinations are easy to understand, right? These are your to and your from. This is where the gravy is. Very few people argue and labor over sources and destinations. Okay, it's all fairly basic, right? But it's when you get to these guys, your transformations, where you start to really have the meat of your data movement. That's me. Fine. So you can do a lot of things. You can have conditional splits, and we'll actually do one of those. And again, this is the Compmy version, so you're going to see a little bit of stuff in here that you're not going to see in the Yukon version, but not enough that it's going to be a big deal. So you can do lookups, you can do merges, and so on and so on. I'm not gonna sit here and read everything to you, because you can read just fine, right? I hate it when somebody pulls up a PowerPoint and then just reads to you what's on the PowerPoint. It's like, just give me the thing. So the first thing we're going to do, this is a good place for a demo, is we're going to go with an OLEDB source. Now, look at that. I am not in a package that has, there we go. I'll use this one because it has my connection manager set up down there. I'll delete all this stuff. And how many of you are as afraid as I am of pulling this over here? Hey! Okay, so I got my OLEDB source. Now, connection managers. This is a pretty cool enhancement from DTS in that there's a single connection manager for every connection. Okay, so when I create this source, I have to assign it a connection manager. Okay, if I were to change that connection manager down there, all of the places it's used in the entire package, if it were used 200 times in the entire package, every one of those would change. And that didn't used to be the same in DTS. You had to go through and change all 200 of them at once. or on your own, right? So the config or the package managers are actually pretty cool. The connection managers. Let's see. I've got my demo here from another connection. Good. Drive space. Hey. So I'm taking the drive space that we collect on our boxes. And one of the things you have to do is you have to click on columns. If you don't, it won't actually select any columns until you do. And you can select as many or few columns as you want. Define an error output that we're not really going to get into right now because we're going to assume for right now everything's going to go perfectly, right? Now I need to select a destination. We'll say OLADB destination. Just drag the arrow down there. Again, I need to choose my DW connection. And let's see, what do we have here? I don't have anything for that, so I'll create one. I don't want address final. There we go. So I'll say my drives. And yeah, we'll see what happens. So I got that. Again, I have to click on mappings. This is if I want one column to go to a different column or whatnot, right? This is where I would define that. And now I'm ready. With the way things have been going today, this is going to fail, but we'll see what happens. We should see it fire up. You should see the data being counted across the data flow. Very slowly. And we've only got like 13,000 or so it's not like we have to go to 6 million like this. Now, when I ran this downstairs right before class, it took about, I don't know, 2.5 seconds. So clearly being upstairs and being on a different connection, and my box clearly having problems now for some reason, and that's probably the RAM caused by recording the video even, right? So we're clearly taking up a lot more space, right? A lot more resources, which is the perfect segue. I didn't plan this, but it's the perfect segue for where your packages run. And I will tell you right now that you can be an SIS developer for the next 5 years, and this will bite you in the ass at least once a week for the next 5 years. Okay? Every time you go to troubleshoot a package or to run a package, you will run across this issue, and it will bite you. Packages run from the machine. I hate to say something stupid, but they run from the machine you run them from. And I realize that's a tautology, but if I have this package deployed on my data warehouse, okay, and I come in and I connect to SIS through Management Studio, and I right-click and say run the package, that package will run from my workstation. Okay, that's very important to understand, because when you have config files and other environment variables getting involved and the package fails because it's looking for them on your local box, okay, then you're gonna troubleshoot that for about half a day before you finally realize what's going on. So this, and the reason I say that is this isn't deployed, but even if this were deployed and I were running it remotely, I would still be running into these performance issues because it's routing the data from that box to my box where it's doing all the scrubbing and then out again. Okay? So just remember that. It's always running from the server that you started off on. If I created a job, if I deployed this to a server and created a job and ran the job from my box, then it would run from the server because the server itself is kicking off that job and the job is calling the package. Therefore, it's being called locally on the server, right? But if I call the package myself, it will be run from my box. And a lot of data warehouses, you don't want to push a terabyte of data across a laptop, right? So even if you don't have environment variables in there, and mark my words, you will run into this. If you write 10 packages, you will run into this 3 times. throughout the life cycle of supporting that package, of those packages. So, okay, and again, I like to name these guys so I know what the source and destinations are, right? It's just good practice. There's all kinds of error handling and everything that we can throw in here, but unfortunately we're just not going to have time to get into that today. One other thing I want to get into while I'm here, let's go ahead and change this. Yes, delete it. Yay. Let's go ahead and take the data out to a file. So to show you it's not really any harder to do anything to a file. And you notice how I don't have a file connection manager down here? So when I double click in here, I can create one. Delimited? Absolutely. Yay. Ah, there we go. And we'll just put this on C. How's that? Backslash. Text. Put that there. My new flat file connection manager, right? I want to map all the columns. I like to save it just in case, you know, I don't know, something happens to the development environment, right? Wow, that was fast. That's because it doesn't have to go back out again. So there we go. So we were able to put it to a file. Now, do you want to put it from a file to the database, or you think you're good? Because it's because it's the same thing, right? If I just change this to a flat file, I can put it into the database pretty easily. Okay. Let's go ahead and destroy this stuff.
So flat file to a table.
So if we wanted to do a flat file source, and then take it to an OLEDB destination, flat file connection manager, got my columns, I can preview it, right? This. I thought I double clicked on it. Hello, there we go. I think we were going to my DW connection and my drives. You have to at least click on the mappings, and I don't understand why they don't just do that for you, but you have to at least click on the mappings. I can preview it. Yep, still looks the same over here, and I should be able to take it from a flat file into the database, which may not be as quick. I'm starting to see the problem. It's that what's that other box down there?
Which box are you writing to?
The test data mart. Yeah.
Test data mart's in Dallas.
Yeah, I think so. So, how long do you want to wait? No, it'll be down here in a second. See, look at that. We're climbing. So yeah, it's clear that other box down there is our problem. And now it's got to commit, and as soon as it commits, there we go. Okay. So you see it's paused. It's really a lot faster than this, I swear. Now a really cool thing, and this is just going to be like one of the small things that you can do that shows you a lot of power in this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to show you how to do a conditional split, and then we'll take an OLEDB and then another OLEDB. Wow, we're really cooking now. Nothing's messing up on us anymore. Must have stopped recording. So we'll take another connection. We'll start with drive space. You want to at least click on it. Now for our conditional split, if I drag this over here now, there won't be anything to choose from.
Right. We get back here.
So I want to come here and I want to say, I'm choosing instance ID, and I'm going to say that where instance ID is less than or equal to 21.
Can you check the values somewhere just to see sample?
Not in here. I did it in Query Analyzer before I came,
Okay.
so I know exactly what I want to do. But no, you can't just do it from here.
Should be able to see some sample data, right, to view the conditions of
No, not from here. There is a place where you can kind of do that, and I'll show you in a minute. So we've got that, and the default, and you can have as many of these conditions as you want, right? So anything that doesn't meet these conditions is going to go to the default output. And we're going to call our default output over 21. Right? So now when I drag this down here, it's going to ask me which output I want. And we'll have this be our under 21. And then we'll have this one. It'll default to over 21 since there's only one left, right? If I had 11 of them in there, it would still ask me which one until I get them all whittled down. So now I need to, and I'll create new tables for these guys. And I'll say disk under 21. Yeah, see? This isn't even highlighted until I go to the mappings, which I have to at least click on. And then same thing over here. Disk over 21. Oh, yeah, you're right. When you're right, you're right. There you go. Happy now? Hey, you are. There we go. So now, I'll save this in case it crashes. What we should get is we should get these data pushed to two separate tables. And of course, this can be two separate tables on two separate systems. It can be a table in a flat file, a table in XML, table in FTP. I mean, you can do anything you need to, right? One of these can, if it's under 21, it can go over here and go down a completely separate processing path. And if it's over 21, you can rearrange and transform the data any way you need to, and then do all kinds of weird things to it and ship it out to Oracle and whatever the hell, right? I mean, you can do anything you want. So once it leaves here, you can do anything you want. So let's see if I built this correctly. And there you go. It's nice and fast, yeah. Well, because we're only writing half the data to each one, so who knows. And then there's a multicast that does about the same thing, except without the conditional split. It takes a full set of data and pushes it out to all of the available things, right? So if you need to do some data transformation to put it in a different format, or if you need to change some data types to push it to Oracle or something, you could have 5 SQL boxes and then come down here and transform it to Oracle and have the full data set, right? So as far as a basic class goes, now, like I said, I can't do this from here, but you can save a copy directly to a SQL server somewhere, so you don't have to actually deploy. But if I wanted to build this, I can build this. Let me see if I have in properties, deployment utility. You can say create deployment utility false. I want to create a deployment utility. So now when I build it, all right. I'm glad I closed that folder. I have it no other way. And when you create a deployment utility, what it gives you in your bin folder is it gives you the compiled packages, deployment, gives you your compiled packages and what's called a manifest, a deployment manifest. And when you double click on that guy, it's going to bring up a wizard that will deploy your packages to wherever you want, whether it be a file system somewhere or a SQL box somewhere. And like I said, I can't do that because I'm having authentication problems to my local box that I'm an SA on, that I'd have to work out. But it's pretty easy. You just tell it the box and then it just does it. I mean, you know, there's no choice. And this is just an XML file. So I come in here. Oh, it's my dual monitors speaking there. There we go. So you see, it's just an XML file. You can add and remove programs there at will, right? So that's how you deploy a package. I realize that's kind of a half-assed. Here's how you deploy a package, but if you
just need to build it and deploy every
Yeah.
time you need to.
Yeah, you have to deploy it every time. And unfortunately, it's not like DTS where you can have a list of packages on the server and go double-click one and bring it up and work with it right there and then save it and then just have it saved right there on the spot. This is more like, this is compiled code. So treat it like an EXE or a DLL and you'll be fine. Other than that, that's really all I had planned. I'm sure I've got some stuff in here I forgot, but we're running really close on time, and this is the closest I've even come to sticking on time. So, as far as a basic SIS class goes, if this is just how to move around and this is how to do it, this will give you a really good idea, so everything isn't quite so scary. If you ever do write any packages and you need some help, by all means, you know.
So we can write a package and schedule it to run every day at a particular time.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is scheduled.
Yeah, scheduling it, you schedule it through SQL. Okay, so that's a different aspect of it, right? That's more of a DBA aspect.
Do the scheduling too?
That's SQL itself. Yeah, SIS doesn't have its own scheduling tool. It relies on SQL scheduling tools, since you can really only run a package like that from SQL. I mean, you can only schedule it in SQL. So
So you can write a procedure and call this package.
yeah, it's not as easy to call a package from an SP, but theoretically, yeah, it's possible. We don't like to do that, but yeah, it's possible.
So in what scenarios do you use this? Like now in our current system, like when do you use this SSI packages?
Oh God, we use them for so many things, and I mean, and it can be used for so much more than we use it for, right? You could use it to just parse through a log file and pick out certain text and send emails to people based off of different alerts off of different entries that it sees in a log file. You could use it to watch for the existence of files on the file system and do something based off of.
Like that, can Eric use it to load data?
Yeah, well, we use it all over the place to
But
load the
then-
data marts.
Okay.
That one there isn't stored procedure, right? Instead of stored procedure, they can use this.
No, we're not doing it on the warehouse as part of the main ETL, because when they created the warehouse, they were on SQL 2000. SQL 2000 64-bit didn't support DTS, so they had to go with the complicated SP job structure that they have. They had no choice. It took me a year and a half to remember that. Every time I'd be like, well, why didn't they? Oh yeah, that's right. And Gordon and I would both go down this path of talking about why they didn't do this and how dumb they were before one of us remembered, oh, that's right, 64-bit and DTS didn't exist. So now we're stuck with this thing, but I wouldn't mind rewriting large portions of it in SIS, and it'd probably even be pretty easy to
It's
do
more
some of the
visible,
portions.
like, instead of-
Yeah, but to do some portions of it would probably be easier.
Very less coding, man. No coding at all. So.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, to schedule them, again, you have to write store procedures. You can't have write store procedures, right? Doing store procedures, you still need to call the package and execute it, right? I mean, to load the data.
You wrote in a job.
Schedule the job. So there is job schedule. Schedule the
Yeah,
package.
in the SQL Server.
Yeah. Have you ever seen SQL jobs? I mean, like scheduled jobs inside of SQL? Okay. Yeah. As a developer, I'll say you don't need to worry your pretty little head about it. If you get, if you get a package,
That's
if you
DBA
write a,
job.
yeah, I mean, really, if you get a package and you want, and you get it the way you want, and you say, I need this put on this server and I want it to run every 20 minutes or something, right? Just, yeah, just give it to a DBA and they'll schedule it for you and make sure you get all of the error emails and everything will be fine. Right? Yeah, you wouldn't even have rights to set up that kind of thing on the box. But, and I mean, theoretically, you could schedule it through Windows. I mean, if you deployed it to the file system, you could use Windows Scheduler and called the command line SIS deployment utility, or execution, right? DTS exec it's still called. And yeah, theoretically, you could do it all from Windows if you wanted to. I mean,
We did write in the file system.
yeah, yeah. Or, you know, you could write a VB script or a PowerShell or something that calls the DTS exec and then schedule that. I mean, yeah, you don't have to do it through SQL. You do have options, but it's best to do it through SQL because, again, it holds execution history and all of that stuff that those other methods don't. You have to code that stuff in yourself, and that's pretty hard. So you get a lot of advantages from doing it from SQL Agent right away. You get all those advantages of step management and history tracking and all of that stuff. So cool. All right, that's all I had.
Thank you very much, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.